also there. So you can actually scroll through and start to see some of those other ones as well. So, all right, well, we've started recording. Thank you, Neelu. So Neelu is going to be sharing the screen with us here. So why don't you go ahead and start the slideshow. And since I know both of you, some of this will be repetitive, but feel free to shoot me a question. You can either talk or you can, in the chat function, feel free to ask specific questions. And since if we remain this small group, absolutely, I can have this be a very kind of one-on-one type of session for you for any type of question you have about undergraduate research at UAB. So we can adapt as needed. So. All right, so why don't we go to that first slide here. All right, so these are some of the things that we're going to be talking about today, and kind of maybe expand your understanding of what undergraduate research can be. And I'll be honest with you, we're all doing that in a whole new way because of the way we're doing things remotely now. And so mentors are being challenged with this. You're being challenged with this as a student. And there are all sorts of new avenues for research. It's still happening. It may not be in person right now, but there are lots of different ways you can still develop your skills as a researcher and still work with mentors, or there are opportunities. And we're going to talk about that today. Also, again, just to emphasize why you should do it. That's important. You're here. Obviously, you're interested in it. But kind of go beyond just the, I need to do it because I'm going to medical school or I'm going to graduate school. We'll talk a little bit about that. And I know some of you've already done some research, but again, maybe talk about different ways that you can find opportunities, how to get involved. Maybe I'll show you some new databases that you can look for, some new opportunities, hopefully. And we'll talk a little bit about summer. Summer at UAB right now, we're all in kind of this unique situation, but maybe planning for the future. I am hopeful that next summer, the NSF and the NIH and all these great summer research opportunities will return, as well as the ones at UAB. So we'll talk a little bit about that, as well as kind of travel opportunities, the opportunity to present your research at different conferences, both national and international, and ways to fund that through our office and also through the student government. So those are some of the things that we'll be talking about today in today's workshop. All right, next slide, please. So here we have the definition of undergraduate research from CUR, which is the Council of Undergraduate Research. How many of you have heard of CUR? You can just raise your hand if you've heard of CUR. All right. Yancey has. All right. Yancey, are you an official member of CUR?
I am not.
You are not. No. Well, you should be because it's free. Okay. And so the Council of Undergraduate Research is this great organization, started about 20 or so years ago, and it helps faculty, it helps staff develop opportunities, and then it also provides resources for students. So you can go to their website, register, you can join listservs, you can join newsletters, you can look for scholarships, all sorts of different opportunities that are on their website. Now, their website's not perfect, but they're always trying to improve it. But so, for example, CUR oversees NCUR, which is the National Conference of Undergraduate Research. Have either of you heard of NCUR? No? Okay. Well, you should make it a goal to present at NCUR. It's one of the greatest, it's the biggest national undergraduate research conference. It's the last one that was held, they had over 4,000 students present from all over the country. They have about a 75 to 80% acceptance rate of the presentations. And UAB has ways of helping you get there. We do have travel grants and things like that. And it rotates every year. This last year, unfortunately, it was going to be in Bozeman, Montana, but it was canceled due to COVID. So I think they're planning on having it in a different place next year, but it rotates around the country. And it's great for a number of reasons. One, it's something you can put on your resume and you can say, I've presented at a national conference. That's good. But even better than that is the opportunity to network and connect with people from all over the country. Because yes, the research world is huge, but it's also very small. What I mean by that is these are your colleagues that you'll be meeting, your future colleagues when you go to these national conferences. So these are people that you can collaborate with in your future career. Connections that you can have all across the country. So for example, maybe there's a graduate school or a medical school that you want to attend. Well, maybe you talk to 3 or 4 people at that conference and ask them, hey, what is this school like? And, you know, is there this, is there that? Do you know any mentors there that are interested in what I'm doing? That sort of thing. You can make those sort of connections at this type of national conference. So that's one of the best things that that CUR does. So next year when they put out the call, and if you aren't already, and I'm going to talk about our newsletter and of course our social media, you know, make sure you're following what our office does, because we will make announcements when NCUR is looking for submissions. So make that kind of a goal at some point, and we'll talk about kind of that pathway. But anyway, so that's what CUR is. But this is their definition of undergraduate research. So an inquiry or investigation conducted by an undergraduate that makes an original intellectual or creative contribution to the discipline. I want to emphasize that last bit, the creative contribution, because when I talk about research, most of the time people think about the STEM fields. They think about people in wet labs, in lab coats, with microscopes and pipettes and all that. And absolutely, of course, that is research. But it is all creative activity is a whole other part of research, as well as education, social sciences, business. Research exists in every single discipline. So if you don't know already, I teach film studies courses, for example. So when I teach a film studies course, I have my students present at the expo because I have them do research projects. There's a lot of research that goes into that. They have to find out if it's a new creative contribution to the discipline. They have to do a lit review and all of those sorts of things. And I bring this up because I talk to students all the time. We have obviously a lot of great STEM students. And I think both of you are STEM majors, correct? Yeah, I thought so, which is great, okay? But I also talk to students all the time who are STEM majors that challenge themselves by doing another type of research. And this is really valuable, where you can really diversify your understanding of what research can be, and also kind of maybe bring in new perspectives to your STEM research. I just read a whole bunch of scholarship applications recently, and several students talked about the way they like to mix medicine research with creative arts. And Sarah Atkins is a great example of this. She's a graduate student at UAB who does fascinating paintings of things that she looks at under the microscope and things like that, because it makes your research, I think it gives it an extra level and people pay more attention. So I just want to bring up that don't just, you have all this time at UAB, there are all sorts of types of research that you can do. Okay, and so that's why I really want to emphasize that. It's in every single discipline. I had a student, Jason Zhang, who I'll talk about a couple times in this presentation, who actually at the virtual Spring Expo presented on an education research project. And he actually did research on the undergraduate research ambassadors and their effect at UAB. So he challenged himself. He's a biomedical engineer, but he said, well, I'm going to try this other thing. And he's really diversified now his portfolio. So something to think about. All right, next slide, please. So why you're doing it, all right? So both of you, I'm sure, have heard from lots of different sources, from your professors, from your advisors, from your family, from your friends. If you're going to medical school, or you've got to have research, right? And so you hear this. And of course, yes, it's valuable and it does distinguish you on a application because of all the things that it gives you. And you can see the things that I've listed here, that research helps you develop all of these things. All right, especially if you do what I call deep research. So deep research is where you are part of a research team. You are part of the team that's asking the questions and is helping produce the results. Not just washing glassware, not just doing data entry, but where you are part of that team. And that takes time, okay? And that you have to work with others and develop teamwork skills and communication skills, time management skills, critical thinking skills, all of these things that graduate schools and medical schools, that's what they're looking for in their students, right? They want people who can talk to each other and work with each other and think creatively. So research allows you to do that if you get into a good, deep research experience that you can talk about and be passionate about. Because that's the other thing that I really want to emphasize is, yes, you hear you need to do research. And so I talk to students all the time. They come in as first-year students, and they're like, okay, I've got to have 4 years of research. I say, well, not really. You need to have deep research, okay? It could be 2 years of really strong research where you got to a point where maybe you have on a published paper, or maybe, you know, you've developed such a relationship with your mentor that they can write an excellent letter of recommendation for you. Those type of things. And also it helps define what you want to do, right? That's the other great thing about it, is you're testing out your career choice. That's invaluable, right? That's so important, because so many people come to UAB because they hear about the great medical connection, and it's absolutely there. It's amazing how we have all these great, you know, hospitals right next to the campus and as part of the campus. But you really have to ask yourself, well, why? Why do I want to take this career path? Is it just because my family's told me? Is it because the career counselor told me this was a great path? Or I've watched ER or Chicago Hope or whatever, you know, CSI or whatever, and I really want to be a medical examiner or something like that. To get through research and to get through medical school or graduate school, you have to develop a thick skin and have persistence, and you have to love it. You know, you really have to develop a passion for doing it, because there are a lot of challenges, as you know, with research. So that's the beauty of it. And these are all things, again, that can really make your personal statement to get into graduate school or medical school just that much stronger. So all of those great things. And those connections, as I talked about, with getting a letter of recommendation or getting to know people like me or your peers, people that you're doing research with, it's invaluable, because I can tell you, you know, when you get to meet people and they are going to be there with you for a long time. I see this over and over now with UAB, where students have they've gone through the undergraduate level, then they go to the graduate or medical school level. There's like this whole cohort of UAB students at the medical school right now. I know them all well. I'm like, it's so great to see them still collaborating. So that's a really great thing. All right, next slide, please.
Okay.
I think we went one too far. There we go. All right. So getting started. RCR, the city training program. Both of you have done that, correct? Awesome. Good. That's the first step. And I know that you did that before you got involved with research. The next thing there, so taking a course with research embedded in it. So we have quite a few of these at UAB. Have either of you taken a course where you've had research as required as part of that course? Not yet, Sahar? No? Okay. Well, talk to your advisor. There are several what are called cures. I know that's confusing with CUR, but a cure stands for Course-Based Undergraduate Research Experience. And we go in, actually our office goes in and designates courses as a research course, an undergraduate research course in BlazerNet. And so you can talk to your advisor, and there are a lot of great courses and you can present at Expo with your research. The beauty of that is it's a contained experience that has kind of a beginning and an end, right? And has a definitive, especially if you're required to present at the Expo, you're going to have a poster or an oral presentation as a result of that. And that's a huge benefit, because, again, you may be part of a team, but it may take a couple years before you have something that your PI or your mentor says, hey, let's present now, or you've got something, or here's your own project. You know, that doesn't always happen. So taking a course where you can do a short research project, present at the expo, practice presenting, really important. So if you haven't taken a course yet, talk to your advisor about it. See if there's one that's interesting to you. See if it fits in with your schedule and all of that. But that's a good way to add some more research to your portfolio. Scholars at uab.edu is a fantastic, it's about 1.5 years old now. And basically it's this website that UAB has developed that data mines all the information that all of the UAB faculty have. So basically, it takes their faculty profile from the websites, the individual websites, it goes to journals, it goes to funding agencies, and it puts it all in one place. So when you go to scholars at uab.edu, you can look at possible mentor. You can do specific keyword searches for types of research and see who at UAB is connected with that. And then they'll have their contact information. Now, I'll be honest with you, some people have done a fantastic job developing their profile, and they have lots of great information there. So, for example, a lot of them might have journals that, articles that they've published. And you can actually click on the link from there and go and read some of their journals. And I highly recommend that if you're looking for a position, because you want to be familiar with what that person is doing research on, right? And you don't have to understand all of their papers. That's totally fine. But you need to just have some knowledge so that if you contact them, you can reference that in the email, and you can actually know if you can get passionate about it. Attend a workshop is the way to start. So here you are. You're following my instructions already. Fantastic. But I'm going to expand this. So we have our workshops, but there are all sorts of incredible, and especially now, I mean, I'll be honest with you, this is one of the silver linings with the COVID-19. Everyone's putting their stuff out with Zoom or on YouTube, and a lot of it's free. I'll give you an example. I just registered for this awesome thing that the Sundance Film Festival is offering to have a workshop, and it's free. Normally, I'd have to pay a lot of money for that. So the same thing's true in other disciplines. And this is, again, it will expand your knowledge, but it's another way to network. So if you get onto a cool workshop, say with microbiology, that they brought in an expert from Harvard to just talk or have a panel discussion, you go to that and maybe you ask a good question in the chat session. They're like, oh, I remember that student. And then you could email that person later if it's someone who works at UAB that you want to work with. They're going to be like, oh, wow, yeah, I remember. Yes, he asked a really good question in that workshop that I offered. So expanding your horizons that way is fantastic. So stay tuned to all the newsletters, follow people on social media, find out about those types of opportunities, because you never know where it could be the one that can change your whole career trajectory. I talk to postdocs and grad students about this often, and sometimes it can be just that light bulb moment where they go to one of these type of things and they're just so inspired by this person, you know, and they go on to work with them. So, and then also the last thing on here, we have our undergraduate research ambassadors. So on their website, which is on our office, the Office of Undergraduate Research website, you can fill out a research interest form, and they have their own little database of opportunities, because I call them my network of spies, because as you both know, at UAB, there's so many opportunities that aren't posted anywhere. It's just through word of mouth and who you know. So I send people to them all the time, and they have their little list, and they talk to people, and they can give you advice. They can give you a template for that email, all those sorts of things. So really good to connect with them as well. All right, next slide, please. All right, so there we go. Back one more. There we go. So both of you have already done some research, and you might already have gone through this process and know what a commitment it is when you get to an actual lab or to a research experience. You know, it's a time commitment, it's a mental commitment, it's a physical commitment. All of those things are so crucial to getting the most out of that experience and to show your professionalism. Okay, that's one of the things that really hits home when people write letters of recommendations is, you know, your commitment to that lab, that you have put in not only what was asked, but you've gone above and beyond. And in order to do that, you got to manage your time wisely, right? The scheduling at UAB can be very challenging. Life can be challenging. We're all juggling certain things. And one of the best ways to do this is to make sure you just have strong communication. And, some situations are better than others. I'll be honest with you. I sometimes talk to students who need to exit a research experience because it wasn't what they were hoping it would be. It's just not a good fit, whatever the reason. But it's good, that last point there of just making sure you finish out a semester, that you just don't ghost a lab, because people know each other on campus, and you don't want to have a PI or a mentor say, oh yeah, that student, they just disappeared. I don't even know what happened. They stopped responding to email. And, and that mentor may be terrible. I mean, that happens sometimes, but you still need to exit in such a way that you can avoid being the one that they talk about, right? Or the one that say, and it could burn a bridge for a future. There's all sorts of reasons you might need to exit. So you just want to make sure you finish it, you complete what you've said you would, and that you have a good exit point if you have to. So that's important as well. All right, next slide, please. All right, so, and by the way, we'll I'll email both of you this link directly.
There's a few more people who've joined us, so.
Oh, good, excellent. Oh my goodness, I'm talking to the two of you. All right, we've got more people. Excellent. Welcome to all of you. Sorry about that. But I will. We'll have we'll post this on YouTube, but I'll also be happy to send you these slides. Once we're all done, so you can look them over and use these links that are here. So the first one, the medical school, if you're interested in medical school, the medical school does have a database where you can do keyword searches. They keep it fairly up to date, and there's a lot of good opportunities there. I've already talked about scholars at uab.edu. Again, that's a great place to look. And then there's this interest form with the URAs, the research ambassadors. But another one I don't have listed here is Handshake. So let me talk a little bit about Handshake real quick. So Handshake was adopted, again, about a year and a half ago. And researchers and PIs definitely are posting some opportunities there. But I like to advise students that when you're looking at Handshake, to make sure that it is a deep research experience, that it's not just you being hired for $10 an hour to wash glassware or to do data entry. Now that's valuable, and it's still a good skill set to have. And honestly, almost any experience, that you're going to start off on the bottom rung and you're going to learn how to do that and move up. But sometimes the jobs that are listed on Handshake are simply, that's what you're going to be, just that bottom level. And that, you do get paid for it, but you may have no opportunity to move up to that deeper level. So just have that as part of the conversation. And it could be, you use it for a semester, you get paid to do it, you develop some skills so that when you apply for a deep research type of experience, you're a little bit better prepared, and you can actually say, hey, I already know how to do this type of thing, and I already know how to do this. That's valuable, so there is value with that. But I've heard a few stories sometimes where students, they'll take a job, they'll stay in it for a year, and they're like, but I'm not going anywhere in this position. And then I've also heard from a few that have been able to move on in a position. So just have good communication with the people that you're applying with, and that you understand where it can lead to. All right, next slide, please. All right, so we have a newsletter, as does the Office of Service Learning, the other part of our office. Both the service learning, I've only got the undergraduate research one here, but lots of different opportunities. When we get directly contacted by PIs and say, hey, we're looking for such and such a student for our lab or our experience, we just tell them, hey, create a little profile and we'll put it in our newsletter. We also advertise a lot of different opportunities. Let me give you a couple of examples. One is CGIU, which stands for the Clinton Global Initiative University. CGIU is an incredible foundation that every year they have a meeting. Now, unfortunately, again, with COVID, this last year it was in Scotland. And we had a bunch of students who were going to go over. We were super excited. They've translated some of that energy into another thing. Actually, I think the entry point just closed, but they had a thing connected with COVID that you could submit a plan, and they would fund you with $2,000 to help you do research connected to COVID-19. So there are those opportunities ongoing. So that's something, an example that we would be advertising there. Also, travel opportunities. So we have, as I mentioned earlier, a travel grant matching program at UAB through our office that we can match up what the student government will give you. We'll match that up to $300. We have an even larger fund that we can do some matching for international travel. This picture right here, the person in this picture, does anyone know who this is? He's fairly famous. That's okay. His name is Kenneth Davis. He just graduated, and he's going to go to medical school. But before he goes to medical school, he was awarded a Fulbright in Germany. So he's going to go do research in Germany for a year and then come back and go to medical school. I know Kenneth very well. I've known him since he was a freshman. And he has traveled the world. He took a lot of different steps that helped develop him to become a Fulbright. So he traveled to Japan through study abroad. He traveled to Germany last year with our office. We had 5 students who got into the World Conference of Undergraduate Research. And he, along with another student, Carrie Tang, both went to Germany with me, and after getting back, they immediately applied for a Fulbright to Germany. So they used that opportunity where they presented on an international level to the world at WorldCur as a stepping stone to a Fulbright scholarship. Now, of course, they've done all sorts of other things leading up to that. They're great researchers. They've presented multiple times at the expo. They've presented at national conferences, the NCUR that I referenced earlier. So they understood because they talked to advisors. I mean, I talked to both of them almost every semester. I would talk to them at least once about different opportunities, and then I'd see them at expo presenting, and then I'd hear about the next thing. And they followed along, and Carrie actually was an undergraduate research ambassador as well. So they used all of those experiences, and they just built up their resume, and they built up their perspective and their ability to do research. And so they went on. So anyway, we talk about those type of opportunities in our newsletter. So if you aren't subscribing to it yet, I've got the link there. We'll send it to you. And you can sign up for a newsletter. It comes out every couple weeks. We do all sorts of great things in that. All right, next slide, please. All right, so Expo. I know some of you have presented at Expo. I know some of you are part of summer programs. I'm excited that there are still some virtual programs happening at UAB this summer, so welcome to those of you who are participating in that. And some of you are going to be required to present at this virtual Expo. It's on July 20 through 24th. We have a new model that we used from the Spring Expo, where students will upload their presentations, and the judges and the community, the UAB community, can then for 3 days go and look at these presentations, give you feedback, give you time to respond to that feedback so that there can be a discussion with your judges and with community members. And then we'll announce the winners at the end of that week. It also gives you the opportunity to go in at any time and see other presentations, leave feedback, leave comments for other people. You know, one of the great things about the Expo that we tried to transition, and we're still working on this, it's still a work in progress. We're finding new ways to present virtually. But one of the things that I've always loved about the Expo is how it brings everyone together from all these different disciplines, and also your own disciplines. And you can walk around and see all these other cool presentations and talk to people. And maybe, you know, you can even attend it if you aren't presenting, and you can look at presentations for things that you're interested in. And you can walk up to that, or in before, when we were in person, you could walk up to that person and talk to them. But in the virtual environment, you can still do that. You can go and leave a comment and say, wow, your research is great. I'm really interested in this. Would you mind if you gave me your email so we could have a conversation about how you got into that lab, or what's it like to do research in that type of experience? You can still use this as a way to network. That's one of my favorite things about the expo, is that interaction between people. So if you're presenting, great. And we're going to have future workshops that are going to help you develop those presentations. But even if you aren't presenting this summer, mark your calendar. This is a great opportunity to go see the other type of research that's being done. It's really exciting to see that, and also to learn how to present virtually. You know, we had students had to transition in the spring and learn how to, you know, add narration to a poster presentation, or to add narration to a slide deck, or to create your own video about your research. All sorts of new ways that you can learn to, you know, just communicate your research. And that's invaluable. I mean, here we are talking through Zoom. So much interaction is through this now. It's so important to be able to communicate this way and be able to do it effectively. And so the expo is an opportunity to practice that. That's the beautiful thing about the expo. Yes, you can place and put that on your resume if you win first place, second place, what have you. But it also is, again, this opportunity to practice, so that you can then go and present at a national conference or an international conference, which then, of course, prepares you for graduate school, medical school, a Fulbright, maybe a Marshall, an Udall. I mean, there's so many great fellowships that you can apply for. But all of these things, doing the research, presenting the research, and we're going to talk about publishing the research here in just a moment. But all of these things lead toward those opportunities. So take advantage of them. Find ways to participate. I have on this slide volunteer and moderate. You know, we won't have that opportunity for the summer one, but in the fall, we're probably going to have a hybrid expo. And when you volunteer or you moderate an oral presentation block, that's another great thing to add to your resume, and also just to see how things work and be part of a team. And volunteering for things, very valuable. So think about that maybe for the fall if you're on campus. All right, next slide, please. All right, so I have a few things listed here. Obviously, we're in the summer of this year. These are things to think about for next year. iRise is a fantastic engineering summer program. It's international. A lot of the students who go through this, if you're in engineering, this is a great program to look for. It's through the National Science Foundation. Dr. Andrzej Stanszewski takes students over to Poland and or Czech Republic. You get to work on equipment that we don't have at UAB. There are a lot of these type of iRise programs. There's ones at UAB, but there are ones that are all over the country as well. And you can participate in those. So if you go to the NSF database, if you just even Google NSF summer programs or summer REUs is the term, research experience for undergraduates, you can absolutely find lots of incredible funded opportunities where you get a great stipend to be there and you get an experience that is outside of UAB. So think about that. And then some people here on this workshop may be coming from other places that would have been at a summer program at UAB or participating. There's several at UAB, but for the UAB students, I always say, hey, test out the waters outside of your comfort zone. All right. Maybe there's a program at another institution that is just waiting for you and can change your whole life. And again, the nice thing about summer programs is it's contained like a class, right? You have a beginning and an end, and almost always you're going to present your research at the end of that. So it's really valuable from that perspective that you get another opportunity to present research and put that on your CV and talk about it. All right, next slide, please. All right, and I referenced these earlier, and I talked about how we have the travel grant. You can see a little funny picture of my daughter. It's not beer, don't worry. She's drinking apple juice. But we went over to Germany with these great students. This is Sashi Thurkel from Dr. Jeremy Day's lab. They always have black posters, really impressive posters. Even their oral presentations, like all the slides have a black background. They're really cool. But anyway, Sashi, she's presented at several conferences. She went over to the World Curve. She won a first place prize that had like 200 euros with it. I mean, she's only one of like 5 people that have that award. It's really amazing. The next one will be in 2022. It's going to be in England, the University of Warwick. So if you're still at UAB, we funded the students to go over there. So if you're here in 2022 and you've done great research, let's get you submitted to that so we can hopefully get you there. ACRE is another one I have listed. That's the Australasian Conference of Undergraduate Research. Carrie and Kenneth, who I talked about earlier, they both went to World Curve. They also went and presented at ACRE. They won first prize down there. BCUR, which is the British Council of Undergraduate Research. We had 10 students get in there this year. It's a fantastic one as well. Unfortunately, again, it did get canceled this year, but we're hoping to translate that into next year. Posters on the Hill. This is through the CUR, the Council of Undergraduate Research. This is where you get to go do your research and present it to senators and representatives from the House of Representatives. Incredible opportunity. There are only about 60 students from the whole nation that are selected for this. We had a student selected this last year, Sharon Kaur. Unfortunately, again, with COVID, it got canceled, but we're hoping it comes back next year. So we had students, we had a student the previous year, Kendall Curtis. Again, our office will help fund you to get to the Posters on the Hill. Like I said, there's only about 60 students who get that from the whole nation. It's very prestigious, so it's worth putting that on your calendar as well. So those are all great program or places you can present. And then, of course, our office does have this great travel grant program where you can find a matching partner, and we will match up to $300 for that. So that can help get you to those conferences. All right, next slide, please. And I think this is you now. All right, so I'm going to pass the mic over to Neelu now. And Neelu, if you could just tell just super quick who you are with Vista, and then talk about your relationship with Enquiro and publications. I'll let you do these next 3 slides.
Okay. Hi, my name is Neelu Varghese. I'm a Vista with the Office of Service Learning and Undergraduate Research. I was previously a student at UAB, and I've actually worked with Enquiro, which is our undergraduate research journal here at UAB. And basically, they accept short papers, long papers, literature reviews. They want to see your work and they want to publish it. And there's an opportunity where you can like have your work faculty reviewed and then understand what the process of getting it published would be like, so that in the future when you publish in bigger papers, you have a good idea of what you're going to go through and what you need to do. It's also something you can put on your resume and CV and show, I've done this. I understand this process. So yeah, and here's actually one of the previous journals that Enquiro's published. So if you want more information on Enquiro, we actually have a website. There's, you can email Enquiro at UAB, or you can go to UAB Enquiro or Enquiro UAB on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. So it's not just Enquiro at UAB though. There are other papers that focus on undergraduate research all over the country. For example, there's a paper called Consilience that's specifically for sustainable development. There's also Inquiries, which they focus more on social sciences, arts, and humanities. And there's the Journal of Undergraduate Research. That is what the journal is called. It focuses on just any kind of general research, like what Gareth was telling us about at the beginning. They don't just publish on science, they publish on a lot of different topics, and it's a good opportunity. So you can go online and just look up different like journals that focus on undergraduate research where you can publish, and it's a great opportunity. So.
All right, thanks, Neelu. And so here's real quick, even though obviously I'm not in the education building right now, but here's my information. Email is the best way to ask me questions right now. So if you have questions that come up after this workshop or just, anytime, feel free to shoot me an email. I'm happy to answer those. There's our website as well. A lot of the information that we've talked about is on our website. So you can definitely go there and dig in deeper to find information. But let's leave that one up there in case people want to have that. I think the next slide is just a thank you. But I'd like to leave these last few minutes, though, because I've been talking this whole time, and I want to thank Neelu for talking about journals. And I just want to second what she said. Again, it's just like the expo is practice for presenting your work. These undergraduate research journals are practice for getting published as a graduate student or, at medical school or what have you. If you're doing an MD, PhD, you're definitely going to be publishing. So it's good to know that process, and it's invaluable. And I'll be honest with you, only about 5 to 7% of students get a first author present or publication. But if you can be in that percentage, think about how that distinguishes you from all the other applicants. If you have that on there, that even with an undergraduate journal, it shows that you've gone through this process, that you understand the process of science and how you do the research, you practice, or you present the research, you publish the research, and that there's this peer review process and all these things, so valuable. So I just want to reiterate that. But does anyone have any questions? You can chime in or you can ask through the chat. You can either way, but feel free to ask any questions for me or for Neelu. We're happy to answer anything that you have right now.
I have a quick question about the cure classes, like the ones that are included in research. So I did honors chemistry lab and we presented at the research expo, but I don't know if it counts as does that count as a cure class? How do I find out which classes count, I guess?
Well, yeah, absolutely. So if you've taken a course and they're supposed to say this is a cure course, okay? Either in the syllabus or, the instructor should tell you, hey, this is, because there's actually a network, a cure network where people kind of post what they're doing and that sort of stuff. Now, that being said, a lot of people take what you do in a cure and they just apply it to their own course. And it's not like an official cure course, but you're still getting the same type of education, the same type of opportunity to present. I'll be honest with you, when I go through and designate courses, if you're presenting at Expo, you're going to get a class designated as a research course. It may not be an official cure course, but it definitely would still count as a research course. So that's still one that you can put in your CV. It's still one that you can reference and talk about in a personal statement or what have you, especially if it was a really meaningful experience or if you really connected with that professor or maybe there's a TA or something in that class that you worked with. That someone can really speak about what you learned and how you presented that. There's ways to put that into your story. So yes, long answer to kind of a short question, but yeah, I would say yours probably wasn't an official cure course, but it definitely is a research course.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from other folks here? All right. Well, if nobody has any questions at this time, like I said, just to remind folks, we will be posting this on YouTube, and I am happy to send you the slides so that you can go to those links that I showed in the slides, as well as my information here. But thank you so much for waking up on a Wednesday morning in the middle of this crazy pandemic and everything else that's happening in the world. It was a pleasure to be with you this morning, and thank you for participating. Next week, we'll have lab basics and lab safety as our workshop as we continue along through the summer. So feel free to join us. You don't have to attend them all, although I will say if you attend them all or watch them all, you will be a lot better off at the end of the series. You'll know a lot more. So thanks again for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you here in the future. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Neelu.
Yeah, thanks. How do I...